MKUltra was the CIA's mind control program. It ran from 1953 to 1973. The goal was to develop techniques for brainwashing, interrogation, and psychological manipulation. CIA operatives administered LSD to unwitting subjects, including their own employees, military personnel, prisoners, mental patients, and random civilians. In one program called Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York, where prostitutes lured men, dosed them with LSD without their knowledge, and CIA agents watched through one-way mirrors. One Army biochemist, Frank Olson, was given LSD without consent during a CIA retreat. 9 days later, he fell from a 13th-floor hotel window. The CIA called it suicide. In 1994, his body was exhumed and forensic evidence showed cranial injuries consistent with being struck before the fall. The program also funded Dr. Donald Evan Cameron at McGill University in Montreal, who put patients into drug-induced comas for weeks, played looped audio messages, and used electroshock therapy at 30 to 40 times normal levels. Patients suffered permanent memory loss. Some forgot their own families. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MKUltra files destroyed. A clerical error preserved about 20,000 documents discovered during a Freedom of Information Act request in 1977. Those surviving documents are the only reason the public knows the program existed. COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was FBI's secret campaign to surveil, infiltrate, discredit, and disrupt domestic political organizations. It ran from 1956 to 1971 under FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. The targets were American citizens. The program initially targeted the Communist Party USA, then expanded to the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, the American Indian Movement, feminist organizations, and anti-war groups. The FBI sent Martin Luther King Jr. an anonymous letter along with alleged hotel room recordings. The letter called King an evil, abnormal beast and suggested he should commit suicide. It arrived weeks before he was scheduled to accept the Nobel Peace Prize. The FBI planted informants inside the Black Panther Party to create internal conflicts. Fred Hampton, the 21-year-old chairman of the Illinois Black Panthers, was shot and killed during a pre-dawn raid in 1969. Evidence showed his bodyguard was an FBI informant who provided a floor plan of the apartment and may have drugged Hampton before the raid. COINTELPRO was exposed in 1971 when activists broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole thousands of documents. No FBI agent was ever prosecuted. Operation Mockingbird was an alleged CIA campaign to influence domestic and foreign media during the Cold War. The Church Committee found that the CIA maintained a network of journalists at major American news organizations who published stories favorable to CIA interests. The CIA also secretly funded student organizations, magazines, and cultural events including the Congress for Cultural Freedom. Former CIA Director William Colby told investigators the agency had assets in every major wire service, newspaper, news weekly, and television network. Washington Post publisher Philip Graham was alleged to be a key liaison between the CIA and the media. The CIA claims it no longer engages in domestic media manipulation. Operation Northwoods is the program that sounds most like a conspiracy theory, but is 100% verified through declassified documents. In 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff proposed a plan to justify invading Cuba by having the US government commit acts of terrorism against its own citizens and blaming them on Cuba. The proposals included bombing American cities, sinking American boats, hijacking planes, and orchestrating violent attacks in Miami and Washington, D.C. One proposal suggested creating a fake Cuban attack on a US military drone disguised as a commercial airliner. Another suggested faking the shooting down of a US fighter jet. The plan was presented to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and President Kennedy. Kennedy rejected it. General Lyman Lemnitzer, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs who championed the plan, was quietly removed from his position. The documents were declassified in 1997. They are available in full on the National Security Archive website. Project SHAMROCK was one of the largest mass surveillance programs in American history before the digital age. It ran from 1945 to 1975. The NSA collected copies of every telegram entering or leaving the United States through major telegraph companies, including Western Union, ITT, and RCA Global. At its peak, the NSA reviewed approximately 150,000 messages per month. The program operated without judicial oversight, without warrants, and without the knowledge of the Congress. When the Church Committee exposed SHAMROCK in 1975, it was described as the largest government interception program affecting Americans ever undertaken. The NSA destroyed its records. The program was the direct predecessor to the digital mass surveillance programs exposed by Edward Snowden. In June 2013, former NSA contractor Edward Snowden leaked thousands of classified documents revealing that the NSA was operating a vast global surveillance apparatus, collecting the communications of millions of people, including American citizens. PRISM gave the NSA access to the servers of major tech companies including Google, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft. The NSA could collect emails, chat logs, video calls, file transfers, and store data without individual warrants. Stellar Wind, which began after September 11, involved warrantless wiretapping and bulk collection of phone metadata for every call made in the United States. The program was so secret that when the Deputy Attorney General and Attorney General both refused to recertify it, White House counsel went to Ashcroft's hospital bed to try to get his signature while he was recovering from surgery. Ashcroft refused. Snowden fled to Russia. He was charged under the Espionage Act. In 2015, a federal court ruled the bulk phone data collection was illegal. Operation Condor was a coordinated campaign of state terror across South America during the 1970s and 1980s, backed by the United States, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil, all ruled by right-wing military dictatorships, shared intelligence, kidnapped prisoners across borders, and carried out assassinations on foreign soil. In 1976, a car bomb in Washington, D.C. killed Orlando Letelier, a former Chilean diplomat, and his American colleague Ronnie Moffett. Chilean intelligence under Pinochet carried out the bombing on American soil. The CIA was aware of Condor from its inception. Declassified documents show the US provided training, funding, and intelligence support. The School of the Americas, a US military training facility, trained thousands of Latin American officers, many of whom committed human rights abuses. Estimates of the total killed range from 60,000 to 80,000, with hundreds of thousands more imprisoned and tortured. The Tuskegee syphilis study was a medical experiment conducted by the US Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972. Researchers enrolled 600 black men from Alabama, 399 with syphilis. The men were told they were receiving free treatment for bad blood. They received no treatment at all. The purpose was to observe untreated syphilis in black men. When penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s, researchers deliberately withheld it. For 40 years, they watched men go blind, go insane, and die from a curable disease. They watched the disease spread to wives and children. By the time a whistleblower exposed the study in 1972, 28 men had directly died of syphilis, 100 of related complications, 40 wives were infected, and 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. President Clinton formally apologized in 1997. The study remains a primary reason for deep distrust of the medical establishment in black communities. Operation Chaos was a CIA domestic surveillance program from 1967 to 1974, created at the request of President Johnson, who believed the anti-war movement was directed by foreign communists. CIA agents infiltrated anti-war organizations, student groups, and black activist movements inside the United States. This was illegal. The CIA's charter explicitly prohibits domestic operations. The program compiled files on over 7,000 Americans and indexed more than 300,000 names. After years of surveillance, the CIA's own conclusion was that the anti-war movement was not controlled by foreign governments. It was genuine. The program found what it was looking for didn't exist, but kept running anyway. The Phoenix program was a CIA operation during Vietnam designed to identify and eliminate Viet Cong infrastructure. It ran from 1965 to 1972. The CIA claimed Phoenix neutralized over 81,000 suspected Viet Cong, of whom approximately 26,000 were killed. Interrogation techniques included electric shock, water torture, beatings, and sexual assault. Many killed or detained were civilians with no Viet Cong connection, targeted by corrupt officials settling personal scores. Vietnamese civilians described Phoenix as a campaign of terror that made people afraid to speak or express any political opinion. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh, the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, in what was called Operation Ajax. Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry, previously controlled by the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, now BP. The CIA sent Kermit Roosevelt Jr., Theodore Roosevelt's grandson, to Tehran. He organized propaganda, bribed journalists, hired mobs, and paid off military officers. Mossadegh was overthrown. The Shah was reinstated and ruled for 26 years with increasingly authoritarian control. The secret police, SHAMROCK, tortured and killed thousands. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah. Revolutionaries stormed the US Embassy and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. The anti-American sentiment was a direct consequence of the 1953 coup. The CIA didn't officially acknowledge its role until 2013, 60 years later. MKNaomi was MKUltra's lesser-known sibling. While MKUltra focused on mind control, MKNaomi focused on biological weapons and chemical agents for covert assassination. The program developed a poison dart gun disguised as a walking cane. They developed a heart attack gun that fired a frozen dart of shellfish toxin designed to dissolve in the body, leaving only a tiny red mark undetectable during autopsy. CIA Director Corby brought the actual gun to the church committee hearing room. The committee also discovered the CIA had retained shellfish toxin and cobra venom in violation of a direct presidential order from Nixon to destroy all biological weapons. Over 11 grams of shellfish toxin was found, enough to kill thousands. The full inventory of what was developed and whether any of it was deployed remains classified.